Hi everyone, Brother Paul here. Welcome to today's video devotion. Thank you for joining us. I truly pray that as you watch this video, that you will be blessed. You know, in this time, in such a time as this, we truly need the blessing of the Lord to protect us, to keep us healthy, to keep us safe, to prosper us, even as the world go through an economic downturn. You and I, we rely on the Lord's covering, the Lord's security, and also the Lord's blessing to keep you and I able, blessed, so that we can be a blessing unto others for such a time as this. And since I used that phrase, for such a time as this, I think you all would know that I'm going to use Esther from today's passage from the book of Esther. Just give you a quick background of Esther's story. Esther is set during the Persian Empire. The Persian king got angry with the queen, deposed her, and then there was a beauty pageant. And in that beauty pageant, Esther, who was Jewish but never told anybody about her Jewish identity, became the queen. Now, Esther was raised up by her cousin's name, Mordecai. And Mordecai, possibly as an older cousin, took Esther and looked after her as if she is his own daughter. So Esther was family, very close to Mordecai. And Mordecai told Esther not to reveal her Jewish identity for her sake. Now, later on, there was this guy called Haman, and Haman came along. He's a top official in the Persian royal court, and he got the king's permission and got the king's ring, signet ring, to proclaim an edict. And the edict was that on a particular day, all the Jews in the Persian Empire would be slaughtered, would be killed. And when Mordecai heard about this, Mordecai put on sackcloth, which is a practice for people in mourning back in those days, put on sackcloth and then started crying in the city square in front of the king's gate. When Esther heard about this, Esther sent one of her servants, and the servant went to Mordecai and asked, "Why are you crying? What's all this about?" So Mordecai sent message through the assistant, and his name is what's his name? Right, let's see. Hathach. What a funny name, yeah? Hathach. So Esther's servant Hathach heard from Mordecai, and Mordecai gave Hathach a copy of the edict and told Esther to go and plead with the king for mercy. And we want to take that up from verse 8. So Mordecai also gave him a copy, gave the servant, this Hathach, a copy of the written decree for their destruction, which was given at Susa. Susa is the capital of the Persian Empire, that he may show it to Esther and explain it to her, and that he may command her, all right, so to ask Esther to command her to go into the king, to make supplication to the king and plead before the king for her people. Verse 9, so Hathach returned and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Verse 10, and Esther spoke to Hathach and gave him a command for Mordecai, saying, this is verse 11 now, all the king's servant and the people of the king's provinces know that any man or woman who goes into the inner court to the king, who has not been called, he has but one law: put all to death, except the one to whom the king holds out the golden scepter, that he may live. And yet I myself has not been called in to go to the king these 30 days. So they told Mordecai Esther's word. So what Esther is saying is this, that when you want to go to the king and the king never summoned you in the inner court, in the royal chambers, if the king don't like you, if he doesn't hold the golden scepter, there's only one result for whoever goes in, and that is death. All right, that is death. Now, if the king holds out his golden scepter, then you may leave. Verse 13 says, and Mordecai told them to answer Esther, do not think that in your heart you will escape in the king's palace any more than all the other Jews. For if you remain completely silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. Yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this. That's from New King James Version. In the NIV version, it says, but who knows, you may have come to your royal position for such a time as this. For such a time as this. I do not know about you. I do not know about your situation. Perhaps you started poor in life. You didn't have all the connection. You don't have all the qualification. You don't come from rich family, not well connected. You don't go to the best school. You don't have a good university degree. And yet you started small, and through the grace of God, to the goodness of God, you grow, you become prosperous, you had a good turn, a good period of blessing, and now you're in the place of influence, and now you're in the place of wealth, or at least a lot more resources. The question therefore is that when there is a tragedy looming, coming to hurt people that you love, people that you care, people that you are associated with, people that has grown with you, perhaps your own neighborhood, and you know that you have the means, you know that you have the power, you know that you have the influence, the resources to change, what would you do for such a time as this? Sometimes it's not when you are poor and struggling that you do not want to associate with the people that you are with before. It's when you become rich. It's when you become prosperous. It's when you have come into a position of influence and you have some sort of reputation. And because your social status have grown further, you think, nah, what happened to them? None of my concern. I think that is why when the Lord instituted the first Passover to Moses and also in the Torah, it taught them that every time when they take the Passover to retell the story about how God brought them out from Egypt as slaves. And then when they became a nation, a great nation, and when they became powerful during the time of David and Solomon, that to always remember when they partake of the Pascha, the Passover, that they would tell the story of how God delivered them from Egypt out of slavery and redeemed them for himself and to bring them to a land flowing with milk and honey. You and I, we may have that sort of experience. We all struggle. I didn't come from a wealthy family. I came from a below average family. And through the years, God has looked after us. God has blessed us. And the question is that when it's in our resources, in our ability to help a fellow man, to help someone, because we have the resources, even though we do not have close acquaintance anymore, are we going to do that, or are we going to ignore? Some people, because to help them, to help those people would affect affect their reputation, would affect their wealth, would affect their so-called social cycle. It is like the story of Ruth when Boaz told the relative who was closest to Naomi, said that to the relative, it is your right, you have the first choice to redeem Naomi. Would you want to do that? He said, yes, but you have to marry Ruth. I said, no, because it will affect my inheritance, my reputation, because Ruth was a Moabitess. What about you? Boaz, we know the story. Boaz redeemed, Boaz married, and through that, God brought the line of David through Boaz and Ruth, all the way to King David, all the way to Jesus Christ our Lord, because he was called the Son of David. Beloved, today you may be in a better position than you were before years ago. The question is, with your social standing, with your resources, with your prosperity, are you willing to step forward to be a blessing unto others, even though it can affect your reputation, it can affect your well-being, it can affect your wealth being, not your well-being, but your wealth being. I really love the Bible. I really love how the Lord instituted in the first order of the Passover to always remember where we came from. You and I, maybe for such a time as this, we are not Esther, we are not the queen, we are not the king, but perhaps we are in the position to help somebody else for such a time as this. What would you do? Let me pray for you. Father God, in Jesus' name, I pray that every person who listens to this video, who watch this, be blessed abundantly, far above all that we can think or imagine. We thank you, Father God, for your grace, your mercy, your goodness. Father God, I pray that you keep everyone in good health. And yet, Father God, even though we are blessed, I pray that you use us to be so blessed that we are a blessing to those that we can help, to those that can't help themselves, that even though if we are associated with them, people may talk behind our back. Father God, I pray that you give us the boldness, the courage to step forth in faith, to step forth in love, to step forth in grace for such a time as this. The Lord bless you, the Lord keep you, the Lord make his face shine on you, his grace, his mercy, his goodness overshadow you, that everywhere you go, you bring Jesus' shalom peace with you every day, everywhere. God bless you in Jesus' name. Amen. Bye-bye.